I'm Deborah Gardner, host to now the #1 hospitality show in America, Hospitality Today Live, where my amazing guests share some real life topics and subjects and opinions and perspectives and stories and lessons and even more. And today I have Lauralee Shapiro, who has been in the hospitality profession for more than 30 years in such a variety of areas, as a meeting professional, DMC to hotels, and now the owner of Wheretonextagency. And she's going to share with us how she was able to adapt in the last 12 months during this pandemic, why she transitioned into a new business, and how can B2B companies like hers serve the hospitality industry, along with takeaways to help you get through the pandemic and so much more. So stay tuned. Lauralee Shapiro up next. It's Tuesday, February 23rd. Welcome, everyone. This episode is actually sponsored by Versator. Let the site tour come to you, versator.com. And we are here to welcome Lauralee Shapiro. Hi, Lauralee.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much again for joining us here on HTL. I've been so excited to have you because this is something that I know everyone is going to want to listen and watch on exactly what you have been doing in the last 12 months. But first, I think everyone needs to understand, those that have not even met you yet, your background here in the industry. Can you share that with us?
Oh, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I'm a huge fan. I started many years ago, as you mentioned. I've been for over 30 years. I started out on the food and beverage side and restaurant management. Then I was assistant clubhouse manager at a private golf and country club doing their banquets and tournaments. And then I moved to Puerto Rico from Toronto, Canada, and I worked for DMC, an offsite team building venue, and eventually fell into hotel convention sales, where I spent about 12 years doing convention sales. And that moved me up to Orlando, Florida. And back in 2007, I joined the planner side with Conference Direct and took a 3-year break during the recession. Like a lot of people had to adapt and went back to hotels. And I've been back with Conference Direct since 2014, so about 7 years. So going on, actually April will be my anniversary, 11 years in total with Conference Direct. And now I've got, 2 new ventures that I've added to my repertoire within the industry.
Wow. All in one breath there. Good for you. I wonder we didn't ever meet because I started out into the meeting side and went to the supplier side. Seems like you kind of did the opposite a little bit, but yeah. I still can't believe our paths had not crossed until about a year ago. But that's what's so beautiful about this industry. There's a lot of people to meet, a lot of places to see. And I am just so proud when I heard what you did when this entire pandemic hit, because we know it's just a crazy time, but you didn't sit on the couch. You didn't just sit there and eat bonbons and watch movies. You actually did something about it. And what made you, transition into a new business before we talk about what exactly it is?
I think like a lot of people in our industry, I work best under pressure. Yes. And I am a single parent with 2 teenage boys. And if anyone's ever tried to feed 2 teenage boys, it's not an easy feat. So, sitting on the sofa and watching Netflix was just not an option. It was, okay, I can either deplete my savings or I can figure out a way to keep my business relevant and sustainable and stay in business.
Wow, good for you. Yeah, sometimes when you've got that responsibility, especially with kids, parenting wise, you just can't sit and just let things happen. You've really got to be creative. And that's the part of our industry, right? It's like we
Yeah.
have such a creative mindset that anything can be thought of and tried. I mean, right now, think about it. There are no rules. There are no guidelines. It's like, just go out and do what you think is important. And I believe that's what you did with a company that is called wheretonextagency. Agency. Tell us about this.
Well, like the rest of the world, after I finished canceling a lot of the conventions that I had booked, in March and April, I started watching all these, Zoom webinars and listened to all the experts. And there was a lot of experts, and everyone had their own opinion. But the one common thread that everyone seemed to say was that, the industry will come back. It's just a matter of time. But the order that our industry was going to bounce back, everyone seemed to agree that it was going to be leisure travel, then business travel, and then group travel. And, some were saying group wouldn't come back till 23 or 24. And I'm sitting there and it's 2020 and I'm thinking, I can't wait 4 years for my business to come back. So they had all said leisure was going to be first. And I thought, well, instead of booking, a couple of hundred rooms at a time, I'll be booking 1 or 2 rooms at a time. So I did all the research and learned as much as I could in a short period of time about the leisure side and how travel agency operations work. And pulled the trigger and, did some searching on GoDaddy to try and find a name that would stand out. And I picked Where to Next Agency simply because it's a play on words for a travel agency. Where are you going to travel to next? But also within my own business, where is my business going next? I'm still booking groups, but in the interim, until groups really start to come back, leisure travel agency is what is really tying me over.
Well, that's a good point. And that was my next question about how you got that name. But I think that is a question that everybody always asks, where to next? Where can we go next? So I just want to say congratulations, because I really believe what you're doing is you're covering the ground as a side hustle. You and I
Right.
talked about this before, as a side hustle, which a lot of people don't think about in the interim until things start picking up again. As a matter of fact, the US travel rate actually dipped to 21% this past January, marking the second worst and darkest month since the pandemic started. Yet, according to Shift Research, 70% of Americans intend to travel in 2021. So there seems to be some kind of hope in this coming year for us to be prepared. But yet a widespread belief in the hotel industry over the span of the pandemic is that leisure travel, like you said, will bounce back first, then corporate, and then the meetings and events sector. But the last of the trio was expected to take years to return to pre-pandemic performance levels. Even Hyatt reported they booked $170 million in new group business, not exclusive of rebookings or cancellations or postponements events in January alone. That represents a 20% acceleration over the third quarter in pure new group bookings. And this is the first time since the COVID-19 that they have been able to see that, especially the Association of Corporate. So is it still fair to say that leisure travel is the primary main driver for the hospitality to recover as a whole?
Absolutely. And some statistics, and I'm not real good at remembering all the numbers, but I know comparing January year over year, not my personal agency, but the larger company that I'm associated with, they were up 30% year over year, January to January. And keep in mind, January 2020, there was no pandemic. It was, let the good times roll. Fast forward, we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and they were up 30% year over year. So the demand is absolutely there. Not just, for hotels and domestic, international, but cruising. Oh my gosh, the cruise addicts are just frothing at the bit to get back on a boat. And, all the naysayers that say, oh, we're not getting on a cruise ship. You couldn't catch me on a cruise ship. When Royal Caribbean opened up for people to register to go on their trial sailings, once they get those boats back in the water, they have a wait list of 200,000 people that have signed up to say, I will be a volunteer and go on that first cruise. So anyone that says, cruising's going to die, we're never going to sail again, leisure travel is dead, absolutely not. It is anything but that. And it's crazy. I just saw an interview with Royal Caribbean. 2021, 75% of their bookings to sail in 2021 are new bookings. They're not using future cruise credits. They're not using, lift and shift where we took it out of 20 and put it in 20. These are brand new bookings. 75% of their 21 bookings are brand new. And Royal Caribbean has, I think, again, forget the numbers here, but I think it was $1.8 billion in deposits for new cruises. So
great.
The demand is absolutely there. And I'm really thankful that, I was lucky, I was smart to say, hey, I should kind of adapt and pick up this leisure, because once things start to happen again and we get the vaccines and people are going, I wouldn't be surprised if my travel agency starts to do more business than my convention planning.
Yeah, that could easily happen. And then that's where we get into the leisure version of your business,
right.
which it has always been there. It just hasn't been accelerated like what you have, brought to the table now at this point. Can you explain to our viewers exactly what leisure is?
Yeah, leisure, technically from the hotel perspective, is anything less than 10 rooms. But there's a lot of travel agents that book group, where they will have a group of, 20 rooms, 50 rooms. If it's cruising, they might book a cruise for 100 cabins. And these are travel agents that are doing that. For me personally, in my business model, I'm keeping my leisure to anything that's less than 10. If they want 10 rooms or 10 cabins, then I just switch hats and I flip it from wheretonextagency to conference direct. My customers don't care which hat I'm wearing when I book it. They just want me to book it. Right. So it really doesn't make a difference to them. But for my personal experience, when it's more than the 10 rooms, to classify as a group, it's better for my customers for me to book it under conference direct than under the travel agency.
Well, it sounds like you have everything covered for anybody that has a need when it's associated to travel. And you and I both have been in it long enough to know that is an essential in our books. People love to travel. And I believe now, this entire year that we've gone through this, I believe that there's been more of an appreciation of travel and trying to find some personal time, vacation wise, and maybe people will start balancing their life better when this is all over. What do you think?
You know what? I totally agree. The adage, you don't know what you have until you haven't got it anymore.
Yeah.
When we took away travel, and, whether you're stuck in your home or you're still going out and going to work, but you're not traveling, you realize how much you're missing out on. Even if it's just a weekend getaway. I'm here in Central Florida. If it's just a weekend going to the beach, when you say you can't do that anymore, now you really miss it. So the pent-up demand is definitely there.
Yeah, it is. And I know once the floodgates open, there's not going to be any turning back. A lot of people are going to take advantage of getting out and about and re-exploring what we have here, even if it has to do in our backyard. It doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
But we do have some of your fans showing up here. We've got wonderful Tracy, our friend. She says Tracy. Hello to you. Just adore her. And she's got a great podcast, food and beverage podcast as well, that I've been able to participate on. And she is just an amazing hospitality veteran for all, for all of us to follow. So thank you, Tracy, for joining us. Totally appreciate her on that. Now, why don't we talk a little bit about not just here in our backyard or here in North America? What about the outlook for rebound in travel internationally? After declaring that 2020 was kind of the worst year ever on tourism record, with more than 1 billion fewer international travelers, the United Nations World Tourism Organization that I've been able to look up said that, in October, there was 79% of expert polled by the agency believed that 2021 rebound was possible. But only 50% said they believed that in January, and now some 41% didn't think travel would reach pre-pandemic levels until 2024 or beyond. What does that look like, not only for inbound international, but what about outbound international?
Yeah, I can't really speak to the inbound, but I can speak to the outbound. And a lot of it really is going to depend on the local regulations in the destination. If it was up to, us here in the United States, I got people that would be on a plane to Europe tomorrow.
Yeah.
But Europe's not letting them in. For me personally, I'm originally from Toronto. I haven't seen my family in over a year. If the Canadian government would let me in, I'd be on a plane tomorrow.
Right.
So a lot of it is going to depend on the destination. When it comes to the Caribbean and Mexico and Bahamas, they're all open. And there's a lot of people that are traveling to Mexico. And the majority of them come home saying, you know what, I felt safer as far as the pandemic in Mexico than I do at home. They follow the directions. People are wearing, hazmat suits in the airport. Everyone's wearing masks. Luggage is cleaned when you get to the resort. And now the majority of the resorts and destinations have jumped on board with these new regulations that you need the negative test 72 hours before coming back into the U.S. Initially, there was a knee-jerk reaction where a lot of people in the States were saying, oh my gosh, this is going to make it impossible, blah, blah, blah. The tourism industry, they want you to come, and they figured it out. And a lot of them, at their own expense, they're not charging their guests. They will call you and say, okay, here's your appointment, come to the ballroom. And they've turned the ballroom into a COVID testing center. In 15 minutes, you are in and out. The next day, they deliver you your test results, and you don't interrupt your vacation at all. So there is possible ways to travel. Of course, I'm going to recommend that you work with a travel professional like myself, because we know the ins and outs. For example, Aruba just came on board today that they are now offering COVID testing. They were one of the last islands to be able to get it up and running. Mexico was right there. They were already doing it, I think, before it even started. And that's because Canada had required the negative COVID test long before the US required it. So they were already doing it. But obviously, with a lot more people traveling from the US than Canada, they really had to ramp up, the whole operation down there. But I think there is certainly the demand to travel to Europe and Asia. Australia, New Zealand cruises. But until those countries let us in, it's anybody's guess. And the same goes for cruising. They can get the CDC to approve, yes, you can cruise, but unless the destinations are going to say, sure, you can come in port, you're going to be on a cruise to nowhere. So it really needs to be complementary, that we're going to go by these rules and the destination's going to go by their rules, and we're all going to agree and get, people traveling again.
Well, we keep hearing that we're going to get some relief support from the government. Have you seen that happen in any segments of the hospitality industry?
In what respect? As far as like funding,
Funding,
helping?
any type of support?
The only thing that I'm aware of is I just saw the announcement yesterday that for this new round of PPP loans, I believe it's starting March 1st for like a 2-week period, they are limiting applications to small businesses.
Right.
with less than 20 employees, and I don't remember what the benchmark was for the income, but they're definitely trying to help small businesses. And within our industry, that's pretty much the majority of them, because even if you're a large, say AV company, the majority of the people that you work for are 1099 independent contractors. So you don't have 20 employees. You got like 50 independent contractors. So those people may qualify, for this next round of PPP loans. So I'm really pleased that they're kind of giving the small businesses the, get in first kind of opportunity to get their applications in. And hopefully when they review the applications, the money will be allotted a little bit fairer than it was the last time.
So maybe a good idea for anybody that's applying for those PPPs to actually somehow put in the application, you are with the travel hospitality industry, since we are one of the ones mostly hit.
Yeah, I don't know if that's specific to the travel and hospitality. I just know that it's small businesses. I know for travel agents, people that are independent contractors owning a business like myself, they're part of that first go period, starting March 1st for doing those applications. So I think just by fluke, the nature of the beast, a lot of the hospitality small businesses will fall into that category.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So I hope people do pay attention to that, at least to investigate or research it to see if that works. Because again, it's definitely going to be, a couple of years before everything's really completely back to at least the 2019 numbers. So
Right.
we have to kind of be aware of that. Okay, what about the vaccine? Are you going to take it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm already, signed up on the list in Florida to get an email when they say I'm eligible. But, unfortunately, I'm too young. I wish I was older and sicker so that I could get the vaccine. But
Well, it seems like we're both in
I'm,
the same boat, that's for sure.
I think I'll fall into, I think it's phase 2 is what they're calling it, once they get all the, the frontline workers and those that are over 65 and health issues. And hopefully they'll get all our teachers in that next group. I'm fine. I work from home. I don't go anywhere. So,
Right.
If I have to wait a little longer, I'm okay. But we really need to get those vaccinated that are, ahead of me. And I'm okay with that.
And what do you think about the mandatory for traveling or meetings and events and leisure altogether? Do you support that it should be mandatory before you even get on a flight or get past the TSA?
You know what? That's a really controversial question.
There is,
And
and
I
I
like
like
that you're kind of stirring the pot here. Me
it.
personally, I have no problem with it. I've traveled internationally. When I spent in, my younger days, I spent 6 months backpacking around Southeast Asia, and I had to get a whole slew of shots in order to go there. I have no problem. My kids have to get shots before they can go to school. So, this is just one more shot that you need to get. And given how contagious and how viral this is, I can see why they're making it mandated. And the bottom line is that leisure is, travel in general, it's a luxury. It's not a right. If you don't want the vaccine, don't get it. No one's forcing you to get it, but understand you're just not going to be able to do some of the things you want to do. You can have to travel in and around the United States and, USVI in Puerto Rico and, go to Guam. But if you want to go to Mexico or anywhere else in the world, you're going to need a vaccine. Just like if you want to go on an African safari, they're going to give you a whole list of shots that you have to have before you can come in their country. And that's just the reality of the world these days.
It is. And it's interesting, though, the longer things take, though, the less interested people get. I was at the grocery store yesterday, and I'm already seeing people not wearing masks. So is that going to happen by the time it's time for us to get a vaccine that, oh, well, by then it's not a bigger deal? I mean, is it going to fade, or do you think people really are looking forward to having a vaccine?
You know what? It's kind of split. Just, watch any newscast. There's going to be those that agree with it and those that disagree with it, those that want to wear a mask, those that don't want to wear a mask. That's the beauty of America is,
Yep.
you can
Yeah.
believe whatever you want to believe. I live in Florida. As far as Florida's concerned, we're open. We're whole citywide conventions and people are walking around without wearing masks. But I'll tell you what's interesting. I was out, I don't remember where it was, a couple of weeks ago, and I was standing in line and, I'm 6 feet behind somebody and they turn around, they're like, "Oh, have you tested positive yet?" And I'm thinking, wow, this is the new normal when you're standing in line chatting with strangers. Now you're talking about, "Oh, did you test positive?" So I said, "Yeah, I was positive back in July." She's like, "Oh, I was positive in November." And so this is now the new norm because eventually, the herd immunity is that eventually everyone will either have it with symptoms, without symptoms, or they've been, immunized, or they know someone that's had it and recovered or had it and didn't. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people that have had it and didn't recover. But everyone is feeling differently, and that's okay. I respect people's opinions and their right to do what they want to do. And if they want to stand there and not wear a mask, then I'm going to make sure I'm standing 6 feet away from you.
Well, that's funny. I never thought about the new type of question, including that as far as a networking question. I guess we're not going to hear the days of, where are you from? Are you single? Are you, do you want to go and have lunch? No,
Right.
it's going to be, hey, have you had COVID? Or
Exactly. Welcome to the new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then, how do B2B companies actually get to serve the hospitality industry like you have? What can they do to, flip the switch is kind of what you did. Are there other ideas out there, or what can companies do to do what you did
Right.
to keep their doors open?
There's one company that I've aligned myself with because I didn't have enough to do. So I'm doing. I've added one more stream of income to my mega corporation that I'm building here, my empire. And that is, I've aligned myself with a company that is an incentive in rewards company, but they are traditionally as a B2B, kind of like, if you shop at our store, you earn points and then you trade those points for merchandise or cash. And they do that through prepaid Visa cards. And the cards can be branded, with your individual, retail store on it. And so it's a points reward program. They have adopted, and I'm working with them within the hospitality and tourism industry. And the main application that I'm using it for is for those incentive groups. You've got these people, and normally salespeople, anyone that's been in sales knows we're all about the trip and we're all about the bonus money. Well, people are okay with money, but it's the travel and the experience that they want. And since they can't travel together at the moment, some companies have gotten very creative, and they'll put together a branded swag box, President's Club 2021, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And what we're doing is they will put in a branded prepaid Visa card that will say, the company's name on it, President's Club 21, and it's preloaded with the dollar amount of what that trip would have been, and saying, sorry, we can't take you to Bahamas, but here's the money. Go to Bahamas when you're ready with whoever you want, and it's on us. And so I'm kind of getting the business from all angles now. So if they want to book their incentive trip for 22 and 23, I can do that through my Conference Direct business, and I'll book the hotel in Mexico for them if that's where they want to go. If they want to do individual travel, I'm like, okay, well, here, I can sell you these prepaid Visa cards. We'll brand it with your program and your company name. And then once they're ready to travel, tell them to call wheretonextagency, and then I'll book their vacation for them.
Wow.
So my empire is kind of getting it from all different sides, but that's just one example of a company that's traditionally B2B with no contact with consumers. They're still B2B, And then after that, it goes B2C. So the provider goes to the corporate, person, and then the corporate person is sending it to their incentive reward winner. And then that person in turn will use that Visa card to pay for their vacation that I'm going to book.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's almost like octopus arms have
Yes.
grown from your empire.
Yes. I want tentacles. I want everything.
That is great. That is great. Well, and each has a purpose and a distinction to connect with the other. So that way you can continue to serve your customers, from A to Z in that kind of fashion. Exactly. So that's very, very impressive. I like that. So what are some of the takeaways that you would like the viewers to know about, to get through the pandemic, to start getting their wheels turning like you did and clear their heads so that they can see a vision of what can be possible for them? What are some things that you can share with them?
Well, I think the first one would be the expression, don't be afraid to color outside the lines. When this whole thing started, a lot of people were saying pivot, pivot, pivot. And I didn't want to pivot. I've been in this industry for over 30 years. This is what I know. This is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. And you can't fake passion. And if I was to try and go into a different, industry, I don't have that same passion that I do for the travel industry. So I had to think of how else can I stay within this industry, but do it differently. And so I chose to use the word adapt. And so that's what I've been doing, is adapting my business. So I'm still booking, conventions for associations and the specialty market, but the incentive market is going to come back first, in my opinion, from the others, because those corporations are going to need to reward their salespeople to recoup the lost revenues. So I stayed within the industry and within, my conference planning, but I've started to focus more on incentives as opposed to associations. The second one is to stay connected with your hospitality peeps. Anyone that's in this business knows that we are probably the smallest large industry on the planet. I also joke it's a very incestuous industry. You never know where you're going to end up and who's connected to who. And, you were joking at a networking event. One of the common questions is, oh, you work there. Do you know so-and-so? And chances are they do, because we are so interconnected. And so wherever your path leads you within this industry, stay in touch with your people. Even if they step out of the industry for a little while, stay in touch with them, because they are part of your network. They support you, they get you, they understand our industry and the fibers that make up the people that work in the hospitality industry. So keep those people close. And then the third and last one is, stay positive. We're going to get through this. For those that have been around for a while, we've made it through 9/11 when we thought no one's ever going to get on an airplane again. I made it when I was working in Puerto Rico through an, airline pilot strike where, we had those people stranded on an island, and, it wasn't like 9/11 where people were stranded. It's like, well, let's just rent a car and go. When you're on an island, that's your only option. So, we've survived airline strikes and volcanic ash, if anyone remembers that. And then, of course, the recession in 2009. And so, yes, it hurts now, but, I truly believe in my heart of hearts that we are a resilient industry. We will adapt. We will find a way to get through this. And I truly believe that we will get through it. And those that are able to stick with it, more power to you. You are going to be stronger for this. And when we come out on the other side, we're probably not going to look like we did in 2019. But I think we're going to be better for it. So those are my three things. I always try to stay positive, sometimes to a fault. I'm generally optimistic when people are like, no, the lights are going out. I'm like, no, but look, we can light candles. So I always try and find the positive in things, and I truly believe I don't know what the positive is yet, but it will show itself eventually, and we'll be fine. We'll get
Well,
through
there is
this.
always a silver lining in
Yeah,
situations like this, and you and I have been in this industry long enough to know that this is not our first rodeo.
right.
It's a different animal. It's definitely a beast, but I think we always learn something new and different, and tons of things. As a matter of fact, I know that what I have learned even about myself personally, I never knew before. And I believe we all are strong and we all are going to get through this, and learning what we need to learn. You know, it's going to happen. So as a matter of fact, you know, what's the one thing that you learned for yourself through this whole thing?
Oh, I hate to sound like a cliche, but I've learned that I'm a lot stronger than I gave myself credit for. I never thought, I've always just done one job. It was either I do hotel sales, or now I'm just doing sourcing for Conference Direct. And, now I'm doing so many different directions all tied together within the one business. And even within the travel agency, I'm actually expanding that, and I'm bringing on a sub travel agent that's going to be my romance specialist, because destination weddings are huge. People are like, we can't get married here, so we're going to go to Mexico.
Right.
And quite honestly, if you want to plan a wedding, I am not your girl, and I am perfectly fine saying that, but that doesn't mean I don't want the money from it. So I'm bringing on someone that has a background in wedding planning, and she's going to use my travel agency to source destination weddings, and we're going to form a partnership. So yeah, I never thought in a million years that I would be growing my business at the speed and breadth that I am, but I'm kind of pleased with myself for doing it. I never thought I was capable of this.
Yeah, that is great. That is good to know, because again, this one was a doozer,
Yeah,
and we didn't know what hit us, because
yeah.
it hit us much harder than any other pandemic or crisis that we've gone through in this industry before. So I'm with you on that. I believe
Yeah.
we are a lot stronger. As a matter of fact, Lisa Raymond actually has a question for you as well, and it has to do with the travel bookings. Will there be COVID-19 questions that your customers are going to have to answer when booking business, their trips?
Yeah, when I'm booking leisure travel, I do have a COVID waiver
Do you?
that my customers need to sign. Just it's 2021. That's just the way it is. And on the group side, one of my customers is doing a hybrid event in Atlanta, and for those that are coming on site, there will be COVID waivers. Here's what our policies are. You have to agree to the terms and conditions. Um,
Yeah.
People just need to cover all their bases.
Yeah.
It's the new normal. So
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. I think, it's the new normal. It's the new lifestyle. We're not going to go back. There's no
right,
doubt. So we have to really pay attention to what is going to be the new need above and beyond, because everybody's brilliancy has gone to a new level. They're much more aware of, safety and security, and the news has given us so much data and information. We all are going to become experts in anything and everything. But I think that what you're doing is the expansion, bringing the side hustles all together under one umbrella, is brilliant. I think a lot of people need to really start thinking about what they want, what they
right,
want to see in the new life, the new normal. And a
right,
lot of people might be just sitting there waiting, but you can't. You can't. You've
right.
got to bring your creativity. You got to bring some of your own knowledge and skills forward, and make something happen for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I remember a poem that my mom used to have many, many years ago. And I just remember one line from it said, "Don't wait for someone to bring you flowers, plant your own garden."
Yeah,
And that's exactly it. And
absolutely.
it's funny, those people that are just sitting and waiting. I'm waiting for things to get normal again. It's like,
It's like,
we're
no.
not going to. And the sooner you accept that, and I heard one speaker in one presentation, I wish I could remember who so I could give them credit. They said, I refuse to use the phrase the new normal because there's nothing normal about this. I
Wow.
call it the new world. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what this is. This is the new world that we live in. It's not normal, but it is what it is. And the sooner we accept it, we can again, then move on with our lives. But for those, sadly, that are just sitting and waiting for those jobs in our industry to come back and to start, booking those citywide conventions. The days of bragging that we had 50,000 people come to our citywide convention, those days are gone.
They're gone.
That is not going to come back. And
No.
anyone that thinks that it is, sorry to be a naysayer for our industry, but honestly, maybe 10 years from now, when this virus is completely gone and everyone has been inoculated, and there's no fear of it, then you can safely say we're going to bring 50,000 people to the city
Right.
again. But until we get to that point, it's going to be a long time before things get back to the way they were. And I really think that anyone that's kind of sticking their head in the sand, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You need to take off the rose tinted glasses and
Yeah.
accept what's there and figure out what your path is. And if it means you pivot out of our industry into something else that maybe you're passionate about animals, well, then go and become a veterinarian or work at a rescue or something. But to sit and wait for our industry to come back to what it was 2 years ago, it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry to
I,
say it.
I have to chuckle because in the speaking industry, we used to brag about that we'd be on the traveling road 300 days a year. It's like nobody wants to do that now.
Right, right.
And I believe, the new world is definitely the new world. And even to dissect that even more, it's almost like the now normal. It's like we have to go day to day to figure out what we're doing and what we're going to do. It's like about staying in the present
Right.
and with your family and your friends in front of you, because this life is a very short one. It's very fragile. And so I think it's going to make people start thinking of the now normal. What does that look like to you now? The decisions you have to make, the people you hang out with that that you love and care for or not. Those are
Right.
decisions that we have to start making now in order to determine what we're going to be doing in the future. So very, very good point. So Lauralee, what are the travel plans for you in 2021?
Well, I've already been traveling. I traveled last weekend. I went to Texas. Unfortunately, I got stuck in Texas with the that ice storm. I looked at the weather report and it's like, well, it's going to be in the 40s. I'm like, so it'll be cold. I'll deal with the cold. We had no idea what was headed that way. It kind of hit us out of left field. So I've done that. I'm actually headed to South Florida this weekend to go and check out a resort, wearing my travel agency hat. I have 2 cruises pending. One is for June, an Alaskan cruise. I highly doubt that one's going to happen, unfortunately. But if I move it to 2022, that's fine. And then I have another cruise that's planned for November. I'm hoping the Thanksgiving cruise will go because we had to cancel that one last year. That one's down to Honduras and Belize. So I'm really looking forward to that. But, I've got a few other trips for business, conference direct, with clients. I was traveling last fall. I went to Memphis in October for site inspections, and I'm going in May to Daytona Beach for site inspections. So, I do it safely. I wipe everything down on the airplane. I got my wipes and my double masks, and I don't take them off. And you just do. Everyone's level of comfort is different, and I respect that. So I do me and you do you. And when I travel, I do what works for me and my level of comfort.
Right, definitely. Well, as a former TA, I envy all the traveling that you're going to be able to do. And I've done that Alaska Princess Cruise before in July,
Okay.
many moons ago, and with my family. And my dad took over about 400 pictures with the old, the old camera, right? And not a one came out.
Oh no.
The actual lens was broken on the camera.
Oh.
But as a 13-year-old, I remember it up here, and I'm going to have to
Well,
take
that's
it
good
again.
to know.
So if you need a partner to go on the cruise to Alaska, I've always wanted to go back. So.
Well, I'm supposed to go with my two boys, and if it gets moved to next year, that'll actually work out well because my older one graduates high school. So I can just say, well, here's your graduation present. We're taking a trip that I was going to take anyways.
Nice. Well, just make sure everybody takes pictures on everybody's camera in case one of them gets broken, because you'll end up with no pictures like us. So,
well, just think the positive on that is that you didn't have to sit through hours of a slideshow.
Yeah. Or all that developing at Walgreens or something.
Right.
And the other positive part is I know I'm going to go back. So.
Absolutely. And who are you going to call to book it?
Yeah, there you go. Where to next agency, of course. I love that. Well, I tell you what, there's always a silver lining in something like this that we've been going through this whole year. So gratitude is always, and faith is always, close to my heart. And I always like to ask that question to my guests is what is it that you are grateful for this past year, going through all of this?
It's going to sound a little self-serving, but I'm really grateful that my boys are in high school, because when they're home for school, I go to my office, they each go to their room, all the doors get closed, and if the timing works out, we all meet in the kitchen for lunch. And if they were in elementary and I had to sit next to them and help them with their school all day, I would not have been able to sustain and grow my business the way that I have. So I'm really thankful, because I see what other parents are going through, and oh my gosh, my heart goes out to you, because I can't even imagine trying to juggle all of that. So I am so grateful that they are where they are in school, and they're both fantastic students. They've really adapted well to the virtual. They're actually doing a hybrid. They're on campus 2 days and then home for 3, and they're both getting, fantastic grades. Touch wood, we still have a couple of months to go, but I think they're gonna do all right. And honestly, kids are so resilient. I know everyone is worried about kids and how much school they've missed, but they'll bounce back and they'll be fine. And it's not the first time in the history of the world that kids haven't gone to school. Look at war-torn areas where kids don't go to school for 4 or 5 years. You get caught up, and they'll be just fine.
Yep, definitely. Wow. Well, and I'm sure as a parent, a good parent that you are, you tell them so, because kids love to please their parents, and that does sound definitely something to be grateful for. Well, this has just been an absolute pleasure having you on this show. I'm so glad to finally get caught up with you, and I've got some information here on how people can connect with you. Can you share that with our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. My social media, just look for Lauralee Shapiro. There's usually a CMP noted after it, sometimes CMP and CIS. But the website is wheretonext.agency. And yes, that's a new extension, .agency. How cool was that?
Oh, okay.
So you can find me at wheretonext.agency. And I just want to give a shout out to you as well. Going from being a speaker and traveling, 300 days a year to what you're doing, you have also adapted brilliantly. And, it takes a lot, because I've seen some speakers that, I'd seen them live and they just don't translate to a 12-inch screen on your laptop, and you've done incredibly well. So kudos to you as well. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I think it has a lot to do with our hospitality background and what we have come from and how we can utilize the skill set that we have. And you're right. It has been a different year, and yet someone like yourself and myself, who's been in this industry for a long time, had really thought about how to adapt. And I think that is the key word. I thank you so much for for bringing that to our attention and for joining us today. It's been a long time coming and it's been a delight.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Lauralee Shapiro. I tell you what she has done has been an incredible transformation of her business. And I'm hoping that you'll enjoy hearing this conversation again or even sharing it with others as well. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. Pick your delight and go with it, and hoping that you'll be able to see this episode and sharing it with others as well. Want to also congratulate our sponsor for joining us as well, Versator. Let the site tour come to you, versator.com. Now, I want to say, what's next? Well, we've got some amazing guests lined up coming up as well, because our next guest is actually going to be the most popular icon in the hospitality industry, Joan Eisenstadt. Joan Eisenstadt is going to be with us next week. She is the expert when it comes to ethics, teaching her decades of experience worldwide. And you and I get the opportunity to learn directly from here on what ethical behavior means today. Find out what guides you ethically too, and also watch as Joan transparently shares what ways does the industry support or neglect ethical behavior. Trust me, this is one episode you will not want to miss. Next Tuesday, same time, same channels. And again, I want to thank our sponsor, Versator, for being here. Also, mark your calendar. Thursday, April 8th is GMID Day, Meeting Industry Global Day. So we want everybody to join us for this special edition where we will have the top leaders of the industry actually on the show telling us about what the meetings industry, events industry, the travel industry all looks like under everything that has to do with hospitality. So we'll keep you reminded of that special time as well. GMID Day, Thursday, April 8th. I'm Deborah Gardner. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, if you're thinking about it, we're talking about it right here on Hospitality Today Live. Have a great week, everybody.